Hi, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of Too Opinionated, where I am thrilled and lucky to be joined by, I guess he wears a lot of hats. So I guess writer, songwriter, musician, Josh Malerman. So Josh, thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Hello. Yeah, this is awesome. We've played in West Virginia a number of times, my band, the High Strung.
Yeah, I'd heard that. A lot of people around here said, I've seen them play.
We played Morgantown a lot, and then we played Charleston and somewhere else too. I can't remember. But where's the place in Morgantown where indie bands would have played in like early 2000s?
Yeah, it's I should know it off the top of my head. That's my daughter graduated from there.
It was like a big painting on one wall.
Yeah, I've
like
been.
You walk in, there was the stage there, and the bar was over here.
Yep, I've been there, but it'll come to me. It'll come to me.
It'll come to me too.
Have you played Huntington? Down around Marshall University.
Possibly, I don't know, because at one point we went on like a tour of public libraries, which really all that was like an all ages shows, right? We played at like teens could come out, and we ended up playing like many smaller, not the main cities in the States, and so it's possible, but it doesn't ring a bell, but it's possible.
Yeah, they had a little club down there called the Valhalla Club that they get a lot of those in indie bands and just smaller venues for that. My son, who I let you know wasn't going to be on the podcast today, but he's a librarian. So
oh wow!
So he may, who knows, he may have been working there when you came through.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So I guess Josh, let's start with just letting you introduce yourself and kind of explain what it is you do, because I think you've got such a unique story, and how you jump from music to writing and kind of combine the two, but I'll let you tell it.
Well, as a really young kid, whatever, I got into writing, trying to write stories, and then I started to make sort of comic books, like kids do, right? Where each I don't even know. I think each page was its own story, but staple them together, and that's those moments were actually fairly profound, because I got this incredible reward out of what felt like a finished book. Like it was stapled, it was done, I could hand it to someone, and that kind of thing. And that period led to like high school and writing the most emo poems that I'll never show you, or maybe I would. If I had it right here, I would read one. Just why not? Right
now we have to know.
It'd be pretty embarrassing. And then because I was working on like poems, my musician friends, who we had been best friends really our whole lives already, but we're like 18, 19 at this point, and they were kind of like, hey, you write poems, we play music, maybe we should like write songs together. It was almost this like, if you can imagine, sort of a 19-year-old logic of like, well, you write, so you could write songs, you could learn music. And it's like, wait, what? And my friends had bought me, those old Farfisa organs?
Yes.
Yeah, bought me one of those, and I'm like, ding, 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 ding. And while my other friend is reading the poem, singing the poems over the two chords on the organ, and it was like, oh shit, this is fun. This could be really, really fun. And it was sort of like the birth of, it was like, things went from what you would consider like an interest or a hobby or just something you kind of do. All of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, we can do this, right? Yeah. Derek was on drums, Mark's singing these poems, I'm playing the organ. So Mark, the other singer-songwriter in the High Strung, he and I have always talked about trying to write books too. Like forever, we've been talking about that. And when we had moved to New York to be in the band and all this, by then obviously I'm playing more than two chords on the organ, but not much more. And we're in New York, and Mark and I, we would even have what we called like a write-in, where you get out of work on Friday, you buy some whiskey and some like lunch meat at the time, you go into your apartment, you lock the door on Friday, and you cannot leave till Monday morning for work. And in that space of time, you got to finish something, whether it's you go freaking nuts and it's a novella, whether it's a short story, whether it's a letter, but something had to get done in that space. And I remember one in particular.
That's awesome.
Where and I had a typewriter back then. I remember one in particular where from Friday after work till Monday morning, I got a 100-page story in. I mean, this was crazy. This was crazy. It was all like listening to the Beach Boys, listening to the Zombies, drinking, eating, like for like 48 hours, whatever it was. So there's always been this sort of mix of playing songs and writing, but the music started to we started to tour a lot, 200 something shows a year. Like I said, I think we were in West Virginia. My gosh, I mean, it had to be like 20 times or something. And we would be going around the country endlessly. But the book side was almost like didn't know how to do it yet.
Right.
Like had started one and stopped, started another one, stopped, like this kind of thing for like 10 years or something. And Mark quit the band for a moment. He's in the band again now. But he quit the band for a moment, and we kind of suddenly had a few months off, right? And we were in the Detroit area. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to write a book right now. I'm going to go, this is going to be like my 5th attempt. Maybe I'll finish this one, And I would go to this coffee shop, this all-night coffee shop in the area. I was staying at my dad's during that stretch. He would go to bed at like midnight, and I would drive to this coffee shop and work till like 4 or 5 in the morning. It was really like a magical sort of hour. And also, this is interesting. Everyone else that was at the coffee shop was there as like law students. So I was surrounded by people like nose in the books. Like nobody's talking about like politics or art. It was like, get to work. And I still think that helped somehow in this experience, that it felt very like you're here to work. And I would go there and blah, blah, blah. And I made it to like page 280 or something. And I was like, oh my God, I know how this one ends. I'm going to finish the book. Yeah. And it was one of the most electrifying feelings. I wrote it freehand, and I had, you remember carbon paper to make a carbon copy?
Oh yeah, of course.
You know that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like another era now.
Doesn't it?
And so I had the draft and the copy like growing, whatever pages at a coffee shop. But I finished, and it was like, oh my God. So after that, though, the band now, back to playing again, goes on the road again. It's only a few months later.
Yeah.
But now I am armed with the belief and knowledge of that I can write a book.
Right.
So, and there was this sense of sort of like, in fact, here, wait, I can show you this. Where is it? My brother made, this is crazy that I have this right here. That first book, here. That first book, this is from then. My brother made a little paperback of it.
Oh, nice.
So I had this like file. I sent him, hey, I wrote a book, And he shows up and he hands me this.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, dude. I was like, this was the most unbelievable thing in the world to me. That's why I still have it. And I keep it by my desk for like, for good luck.
Yeah.
And it's like the first time I ever had a book like bound. This is it, And so there was a side of me that kind of was like, oh, okay, I wrote a book. I finally did it. Right? You're done. Right? About like a year later, you're like, well, I mean, you can't just write one, right? If you only wrote one, then you kind of just.
Why would you?
Should we try a second one? And wrote a second one. Then not a year later, but 6 months later, wrote a third one. 6 months later, a fourth one, which was Bird Box, by the way.
Yeah.
A few months later, another one, and it started to just like unfold. That first one was 15 years ago. That thing looks brand new, by the way. That was 15 years ago, and I am on the cusp of wrapping book 32.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very prolific.
Yeah. Yep. It's funny. For a while, I feel like I was perhaps like not embarrassed of being. I call it like it's almost a noun, I suppose. I'm a prolific, and I was embarrassed of being a prolific for a minute because I felt like. You'd see somebody would say like, oh, if you're writing that much, then you don't mean it. You don't mean each story.
Right.
You write this many songs, where do I start? Oh, never mind. I'm not going to start anywhere. That kind of thing. And you'd think of like my heroes like Hitchcock and And all the 80s horror dudes are putting out like two horror novels a year, and Guided by Voices. You know them, the band?
Guided by Voices. I don't know that one.
Guided by Voices. Yeah, they have something like 100 albums or something. And a lot of my heroes, they just like steadily, all it really is they're steadily putting things out for years. It's not like they put out, I can't explain it, like 2 books a year. If you don't have another job, you can do this. It's not that crazy of a concept. You're just steadily working every year. Hitchcock put out a movie every year, that kind of thing. But for a while I was nervous because I'm new to the book world, new to the scene, and I didn't want it to be seen as like, oh, he's just like crapping out another story, that kind of thing. So I would tell people, but I just felt like a little more self-conscious of it,
Right. Well, you want to put out quality. You don't want to just put
no
out,
doubt, but
quantity. Yeah,
no doubt. But then at some point I just realized, no, this is fine. This is who you are. And then I realized, that you are prolific, and that's fine. And I find myself now talking like a lot more about those kind of things. But then, what's it called? It turned out that like the band's on the road, I'm writing books in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
Eventually the band stops being on the road. I'm writing at home, whatever. And in around about exactly then, like close to then, I met a guy named Ryan Lewis, who is now my manager. And we have been working together for 11 years. And Ryan and I had Unburied Carol, a book of mine back then.
Yeah.
And Ryan and I, like with his tutelage and whatever, I rewrote it, and we were all set to shop it and to an agent, that kind of thing. And right before we did, I was like, hey, listen, I think I have a better like debut. I have a better, how do you do? I think this story, Bird Box, is a better sort of first novel. Because I had like at that time, like 9 or 10 of them or something, And Ryan was like, dude, we just worked on Unburied Carol for like a year and a half, man. And I was like, yeah, well, let's do this instead. And we did. And we worked on Bird Box for a year and a half. Then he brought it to like him and my lawyer, Wayne, they brought it to an agent named Kristen, who picked it up. And Kristen shopped it, and it was picked up by HarperCollins and picked up by Universal Studios before it was released as a book. So all of a sudden, it was really like this from my angle. I know Ryan and I worked on this for a long time, but from my angle, it was like a domino effect almost, where there was a friend of mine, Dave, and introduced me to the lawyer, Ryan, Kristen, publishing house, movie studio, and it was just like, and all of a sudden, Bird Box was like, whoa, what's going on right now, right? And that at that point, the High Strung, we were still putting out albums, but now we're not touring.
Right.
At that point, it was like, okay, now they are both like fully happening in my life. It was sort of like, it was interesting to watch like how because like for me, it's not very easy to write a book and then later at night write a song. It's almost like I have to be in a headspace. Like maybe for you, what else do you do other than like the podcast? What do you do otherwise?
Well, I work in a hospital.
Oh, well, okay. Do you have like other creative endeavors?
No, but my son does. And that's your story kind of resonated because the one thing he writes, and the one thing that he complains about or worries about is that he jumps from story to story.
Yeah.
And he just loves to write, and he probably has 20 different partially completed novels or scripts, and he worries about that because he's never finished. So I'll make sure he listens to what you said, because it sounded like you did similar things until you actually finished one.
Yeah, for sure. And then it's not easy to go. It's almost like you have to like, oh my God, it's almost like you have to be like your own boss or some militant thing that says, here's the list of stories I'm going to do. I'm going to do them in this order. I'm not allowed to do the second one until the first one's done.
Right.
Even if the first one, like, sucks. Like, you got to finish it before you move on. Because number one, you don't know at the time if it sucks. You don't. You think you do. I'm releasing a book right now, serializing it for free on my website.
Yeah, it's so neat. I saw that.
You did awesome. Yeah. I guess I could tell you the story behind it, but first, there have been parts in it where I'm like, oh shoot, this is no, man. This part isn't as good as the rest. And then I go back to rewrite it a day or two later, and I'm like, dude, it's fine. What was I doing? So that's number one, is people say you're your worst critic or whatever, but it's almost more like a more refreshing way of saying is at the time you don't know what good or bad is.
Right.
And so why not just finish it, you know? And then later on, if you're like, that one sucked, okay, great. But like you said, your son, he has a list of stories he wants to do and 20 ideas. Well, imagine how good he would feel if he finished all 20 and then actually went through them and was like, how did this one turn out? Oh, that one's good. If I could just add a little here or this or that. I mean, how good would he feel to have them all done? But the only way you're going to get them all done is if you finish each one. You know, I remember saying to Allison once, like, if you want to be an artist, you actually have to finish works of art.
Right.
But that's a big realization, right? It's like, it's not just a musician, I'm a songwriter. That means I have to actually finish writing the song. And I would say that same thing to your son. But the key to me, the wall to break down, the barrier was that, is this good or bad? And maybe this idea is better, and maybe this idea is better. Well, maybe it is, but finish this one first, because writing this one is only going to make you a better writer by the time you get to that one anyway.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I always tell him, you know, if you've got good ideas, write them down. There's nothing wrong with that, because you never know when something's going to spark you, and you'll go back to it. But yeah, that I hope that helps him a little bit, because I'm biased, but I read to his credit, he sends me everything he writes, whatever he thinks about it. And I think it's really good. And he comes up with some unique ideas, which is important when you're, trying to write a story. But I guess he gets stuck a little bit at some point just with the finish, and he'll move to something.
Oh yeah. Well, that's another thing, right? It's like, what kind of stuff is he into? Just anything, or?
Yeah, he bounces around. He does some sci-fi, does some fantasy, does a little noir, some mystery.
Oh, that's cool. But I'll bet you some of his favorite books, he didn't like the ending. I bet you some of his favorite movies, he's like, I love that movie. I didn't like the ending, but I love it. How old is he?
He's 20.
Oh man, I didn't finish writing my first novel till 29. Yeah, he's already got he's got a leg up if he's already thinking this way at all already, man. But like, I don't know. I think that, we talk about like Stephen King and those, these big names, and then you're like, a lot of people don't like the endings of his books, but they love the books. And then once you kind of like are like, well, I just have to end it somehow. And also in a rewrite, I could change that.
Yeah,
but let's end it somehow for now.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I always call them placeholders. Like, I have friends that get stuck on a character name. All right, well, just use your brother's name. Use your name. Use your name. All right, Josh did this. And then you'll go change his name when you think of something cool later on. But anything that impedes finishing the story, you almost got to like blast it out of there like a video game.
Yeah, I like that. Because you're right. It's really easy to get kind of tied up on the details and not, not actually get the actual story out.
Yeah. I know. And it's always really surprising. It's like these little things, Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't know what to do. I had an editor once who was really funny woman, Lee Boudreau. And she was like, if you ever get stuck, just add a sister.
That's not bad advice.
I was like, this sounds ridiculous, but like there was one time where I did it. There was one time like in a rough draft where like years later I was like, I don't know why. Okay, well, I'm gonna add a sister.
Did it work?
The book's done.
Hey, I noticed that you were, that looked like Elfstones of Shannara that you held up.
Yeah. Yeah, do you know this one?
Oh, yeah, I like Terry Brooks. I think, I may have started with Sword of Shannara, but I've definitely read that. That's
dude, I love it. Sword's right there. Yep. I met him.
You met Terry?
Yeah, he's on Del Rey also.
Yes.
And I met him in Chicago, and he was amazing. We met him and his wife Judine. Allison and I went out to lunch with him, and then a bunch of writers from Del Rey went out to dinner, and he was awesome, dude. And he was telling us about like how long it took him to write Sword. Like it was like 10 years or something crazy.
Yeah.
5 years to write this one, and then the third one I think comes right after this one, like the next year or two. And he said he started to realize how to like write, how he learned how to write faster or something. I don't know the right phrasing, but he was talking about how like after this one there was sort of a breakthrough after this one. But this one I'm loving. I'm almost I'm at 350.
That's probably my favorite one. Is that
this is a lot of people's favorite one.
Yeah.
I'm just at the part now where Will and Ambrose, I don't know how to say some of the names. Ambrose and Will, they're like walking through that Wilderrun right now, and like see the throat cutters and you know, ne'er-do-wells. They're in that like town. You know, that yeah.
Yeah, I think I've read. I think I started reading him when I was back in school. You know, he did, cause he's been around for a while now.
Yeah.
And I love the fact because he's got a few different series. You know, he's got Shannara, he's got there's one like The Word or Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
But, and some of them actually loosely tie together. You know, I've read some of that stuff with him that, you know, they take place, you know, it's got a tie to Earth. You know, you just
Did you read the demon one?
What's that?
Like the series that has something to do with a demon or something?
Yeah, that one. That's the one I was trying. It's like The Word, or I can't remember what that one's called. I've read it.
Is it pretty awesome?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, I love it.
On Twitter recently, he said that was his favorite. I think he said that's like his favorite series he had done. So I was seeing about checking that out. But I want to make it through that, at least that initial trilogy first.
Yeah.
You ever read Dragonlance?
What is it?
Dragonlance?
Oh my gosh! Listen, I've been trying to get Brett to read the first 6 books of Dragonlance for years. You know, I was a big D&D guy growing up, and he's got a group that he plays with all the time. And I told him that those books are probably as close as you'll come to actually, you know, playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh man, I haven't started. I have it right here. Let me show you. Hold on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, it's on. Yeah, show us.
Here.
Let's see what you got there, because, those are some of my favorites. Yeah, there they are, the Chronicles.
Yeah.
This would be like Spring Dawning and oh yeah.
I can't wait, man.
You got her, and they're a quick read. Yeah, you'll blow through those. And then the trilogy that comes right after those, just as good. Those 6 books are really amazing.
Awesome. I'm so glad that we awesome. Glad we're talking about
You're helping me out because I'm gonna send him that clip afterwards. I'm going to say,
awesome. I'm really excited for him.
Now, this is a question that I think is going to help everybody out there is, could you possibly call George Martin and help him speed up his writing a little bit?
He's been working on that last one for a while, huh?
Oh my goodness. I started reading him in the 90s, and I think that last book he put out was like 2012 or something. You know?
Something like that, yeah. And then is it always like 6, 7, 8 years between? Or?
He used to be quicker. Yeah, I think this has been the longest.
And is this supposed to be the finale or not necessarily?
No, it's still. I think there's one book after this one.
Wow.
Yeah,
cool.
So it's a way. I mean, I think it would be difficult to, and I'm sure he didn't intend to do that, to be writing this series, and he probably intended to finish it before Game of Thrones passed him up, and they passed him. And now, you know, how does that influence what you're writing?
Right, because it has. My guess, without ever having met him, but I would love to. My guess is that he makes the full separation, but that show is such a phenomenon that I don't know how you ignore it completely, right? It's such a phenomenon. Yeah, and you read all those books?
I read all those.
Are they just totally badass?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He's an incredible writer. Amazing. Have you ever? I'll ask you one more since we're talking about it. Since we're into the fantasy stuff, have you ever done Wheel of Time? Robert Jordan.
You know that Robert Jordan?
Yeah.
No, you read all that?
All that. Now Brett is actually working his way through those right now.
What are your
15 of them?
Yeah, I know, and they're all like almost 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
How did you have a favorite like 4 through 7, like a favorite?
The first 6 I think are excellent. Number 6 is probably my favorite. It's called Lord of Chaos, and then you ran into kind of a little bit like Fellowship of the Rings, where it's just there's a lot of background, a lot of new characters, a lot of scenery. So you go through that for, probably 2 or 3 books. And then around book 10, the story really takes back off. And then, of course, he passed away and Brandon Sanderson took over. And you can't hardly tell that it's a different person writing it.
That is weird, right? So he wrote the first 11?
I think the first 11, and then Sanderson did the last 4, I think.
Wow.
But you can't tell.
That's amazing just to do the last 4, if you think about it. I mean, that's like a ton of...
That's a ton of work.
There.
Well, and you had to, my understanding was that he had all of that written out. So he had just thousands of pages of notes. I'm sure that was just a bear to go through to actually put that into a story form.
Oh my God. Yeah, I want to check that out. My lawyer's read all those and he really loved it. Yeah.
Well, it's going to be a series now.
That dude reads. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That dude reads fast, man. I'll send my lawyer my book. Like Malorie, I sent him. I mean, I think like 2 days later he'll write me, every time. It's like he I don't know how he does it or what. Maybe he's reading like as he's working out or something, or maybe he just doesn't watch TV. But he
you got to choose.
Yeah, sometimes it feels that way.
Well, when you wrote or sold Bird Box, how did that process kind of play out? Did they, were you completely out of the loop at that point, or did they use you to kind of script the television movie?
Well, it's interesting because I had no say, literally like I sold or the option and then the rights, it's all theirs. But they didn't exclude us entirely. I was on the phone when they were talking to prospective screenwriters and I met each of them on the phone.
Yeah.
I was flown to LA to like meet the producers and to be like in the office and just talk about it. And I saw like storyboards. Allison and I were flown to the set.
Wow.
We were flown to a premiere in LA and then we were flown to another one in New York. I mean, we were a part of it,
Yeah.
It was really exciting. But in terms of actual involvement, like I had no say. But I was also like happily had no say. It wasn't it's important to remember 2 things. First of all, I'm used to being, in a band where I write a song and I bring it to the boys and they do whatever they want with it, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of felt like I wrote the song Bird Box and then the musician Sandra Bullock, I would just go play the song however you want. It's like, it really felt that way to me. Like,
yeah, I love that.
I'm used to that already or something. And second of all, Bird Box was optioned and all that for film before the book even came out. And it was my first published book. So talk about like, no leverage or whatever. I mean, I was literally didn't have anything out. So to me, it was every bit of it I was like grateful, happy, excited, nervous, everything.
Did you get to meet any of the cast?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Cool.
Like almost all of them. We met Sandra Bullock.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, she was great. She was like super funny and she was super funny. I met her in an amazing way. We were on set for about 12 hours and then at the end of it, like where they were filming was all lit up.
Yeah.
But then beyond that was like shadows, And then at the end of their filming, a producer came over and I was in the shadows, obviously. He was like, "Hey, Josh, I want you to meet someone." And I was like, "Oh, shit. Oh, no, here we go." And he brings me over and like underneath those bright lights, she's like in costume as Malorie.
Yeah.
And I'm meeting her and everyone else is kind of like a little bit further out, closer. And I felt like I was meeting her on stage, It was like,
amazing.
Yeah, it was a magical, like, wow, I can't believe that this is the condition under which I'm meeting you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had
cool.
she read the book? Did she take time to read the book? Or
yeah. Supposedly what we were told was that like everyone involved did. That's what we were told. I know David Dasmelchian did, and because him and I talked about it a lot, and amongst other things. But yeah, we were under the impression that everyone did.
That's amazing. That has to feel good.
Yeah. It was incredible, dude. And again, your first novel. But by the time the movie came out, I must have had 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 books out or something.
Yeah.
5 or 6 or something. So I was starting to get, I wouldn't say used to it all because I don't know if I'll ever get used to it all. But it's I did feel more like, not that I belonged, but like it wasn't just some book I wrote and it's a movie. It was like, okay, I'm an author and I'm putting books
Right.
out and I'm on set. And I felt like meeting, all these like actors and writers and stuff. I felt like, yeah, I guess like I belong. Yeah. Something like
Yeah.
that.
That's awesome. So Mallory's the sequel,
Yeah.
and that comes out this summer.
Yep. July 21st. And my
That's
birthday is July 24th.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I just saw today that it was a starred review in Publishers Weekly. Yeah, that came out today.
Oh,
So
wow.
a starred review, that whatever, that's just great. That kind of thing is like that's awesome to see. So I love that book, man.
Is this one giving us? It's more from her viewpoint, or what's the story here?
Not necessarily. It just, I realized when like when I had finished Bird Box before the movie and stuff, people would say, you could write a sequel of like some other family in this world, right? Like
You could, yeah.
What's a family in India doing right now, or someone down the road from her? I mean,
Yeah.
go to like another setting, right, in this world. So that way you don't have to touch the Mallorys story, and you can tell a whole other story in this world.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of stuff like that, but then I was just like, no, this Bird Box is Mallorys story. It's her story. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna work with her again and see what we got. And it's 12 years after the end of number one.
Okay.
So the kids are now 16 years old. Olivia and Tom, if you remember, they were named at the end of the movie.
At the end, that's right.
And the book. Olivia and Tom are now 16. And Malorie receives, or they're like staying in this like sort of this abandoned camp. And a guy who claims to be like a census taker comes by.
Okay.
And, like a census man. And obviously Malorie won't let him in or anything, right? But he ends up leaving his information, like what the information he's gathered. He has like a wheelbarrow of like information, And in that information, I saw all this in the Publishers Weekly Review, so I feel like it's fine to tell this much. And in that information is a list of survivors, and on that list of survivors are Mallory's parents' names.
Oh.
In this other city. But her parents have pretty common names, but they are listed together, and she is kind of from that general area, and is that mom and dad? Did they survive? Because in Bird Box, it just ends with, I mean, the mom part just ends with they did stop calling.
Right.
So whatever happened to her mom and dad, right? So this is like, maybe mom and dad are still alive out there, and Malorie and these two teenagers are either going to go find out or not.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's exciting. I'm really looking forward to reading that one. So can we expect to see that one on screen at some point?
Well, I mean, we hear like rumblings about it, and we've talked with the producers, obviously, of Bird Box and that kind of thing. I haven't got anything like official word or anything like that. I mean, I would love to see it. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, for sure.
I would love to go on that set again, and all that would be a total dream. But we don't have any official word on it yet.
Yeah. So the other, I'll skip around because I got a couple more questions on book related, but I wanted to ask you about, you wrote the song that ended up being the theme song for Shameless. How did that come about?
That's crazy, man. We were so in 2003 or something, we met a woman named Mara Schwartz who worked for a company at the time called Bug Music, and her job was to what she did was to shop songs to film and TV. And Mara, I think in 05 or 06, we gave her the album with The Luck You Got on it. And she really took to that song, and she's like, I think that I can get this placed somewhere. And, she's amazing, and she had got us a couple other things, and it was mind-blowing, like a thing in a commercial and a thing in a preview for a movie, just exciting stuff. And then one day after practice, she Derek, the drummer, his phone rings and it's Mara, and she's like, I think I got a theme song for Showtime, and it's a show starring William H. Macy. And we're like, what? We're like, we couldn't believe it, And then one of the weirdest things, well, first of all, I wrote The Luck You Got at, this is interesting to me. I wrote it at like a party in Georgia, Athens, Georgia. Yeah. You been there?
I have been there.
Yeah, it's cool, right?
Yeah.
And I was at outside of the party. Everyone's wasted inside, and I was just playing the guitar, and I wrote it. And I came back in, and I showed Mark, the other songwriter. I'm like, I think I just wrote a song that's kind of like Billy Joel or something, you know? And he's like, that doesn't sound like Billy Joel, man. You know, what are you talking about? And then, all right, never mind. And then we started like, then we like learned it, you know, blah blah blah. But it's funny that so The Luck You Got is the theme song for that show, which is like the drunkest show ever.
Right.
And then we also had. Do you ever see that movie? What's it called? Everything Must Go or something with Will Ferrell.
Yes. He's on the lawn. Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So we also had a song in that where he like drops out and just drinks and stuff. And I was like, I don't know how it worked out, but we became like the drinking song band.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. My stepson, everybody in the family is musically inclined except for me and Brett. So my stepson, my wife, all the other family, they can sing, they play like every instrument, you know, they all have that. So Brett and I just kind of stumble through, you know, we listen to music, we enjoy it, but just don't have that ability. So I was listening to one of your songs. Let me get the name right. It's let me think. The Baddest Ship. That was it.
Yeah.
The Baddest Ship. And to me, I'm preface that by saying that, you know, the only way I know music is just I listen to music, enjoy it. But The Baddest Ship, it sounds very, to me, sounded very Beatle-esque to me. I got a Beatle vibe from it. So that was kind of my question. Have you ever heard that before with any of your music, or is that just?
Well, yeah. I mean, like the Kinks and the Who and that British Invasion stuff.
Yes.
You know, that's like a lot of our like favorite stuff. But obviously, you know, bunch of dudes from the middle of Michigan, you know, we can't, and it's good that we can't totally pull that off. You know, nobody wants to sound exactly like someone like
that.
Right.
That's right.
But,
it just kind of had that vibe to me.
Yeah, we love that era, man. Yeah, for sure.
I know this is, I don't know if this had anything to do with it, but the High Strung, I was like, I'm going to look that up. So when I looked up the High Strung, the definition they gave was extremely neurotic, but still charismatic.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Oh, it said still charismatic. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So does that fit your band? Does that
yes, like to a T actually it does. I'm gonna look that. I'm gonna when we're off. I'm gonna look that definition up, and I'm gonna highlight the charismatic part and send it to the bandmate.
Right. What where did you come up with the name?
So man, just like I'm sure every band goes through, we had like so many names and we were trying forever. This is when we were living in New York and we had all these names. I remember like the worst names, and I don't know. We used to wear our guitars high because we couldn't play them, so we had to like look at them. We sang super high, the treble, you know, in our band. And then it just started to go from there. I started to come up with things that like the high something, the high sound, the high, you know, and it led to that. But then we called ourselves the High Strung at the first show, and I wasn't sure if I thought it was going to stay there or not. You know what I mean? I wasn't sure if the name was going to stick around or not. But then like a few years in, you're like, well, shit, now we have like a few albums. This is our name.
You gotta do it now.
Yeah, the boys really love the name. I would love to change it to something like, I don't want to say something more peaceful because that sounds cheesy, but I'm a lot less like than I was back then, you know?
Yeah.
So I would sort of like to have, I don't want to call ourselves like Ohm or something. But just something like, you know, it doesn't have to be High Strung either, you know. But they love the name. I'm like, all right, screw it, we stay.
That ship sailed. You're stuck with
that
it.
That ship sailed. You're right. And you're right. And I just need to be like, okay, all right, you're right.
I don't know if you've ever watched Parks and Rec, but Chris Pratt, when he was on there, he had a group, you know, a musical group, and every episode they changed the name of the group.
Yeah, right. Right, we got to be careful.
It got to the point where they couldn't even remember what their current name was. So tell us a little bit about you talked a little about the serialized book, which I think is awesome. You're releasing chapters every week, but tell us a little bit about that.
So I've had this idea for a minute, and it's actually the first short story I ever got published in 2014. It was
Yeah.
called A Fiddlehead Party on Carpenter's Farm. And I put it out because I had this idea for the novel, but wasn't really in a position or ready to write the novel. And I wanted to kind of get the idea out there, if that makes sense. It was almost like, I'm going to just write a story that winks at what the novel will be one day.
Right.
Yeah, and then years later, in like 2017, I tried to write it. I made it like 40,000 words, which that's a lot. That's like,
A lot of
I don't know,
words.
150, 160 pages or something, whatever it is. And it wasn't right, man. It was like, whatever this is like, it's not even, like the characters are wrong. Nothing, the same core idea, but nothing about it like felt right. And then about a month or two ago, it struck me like the way that this story could actually go. Yeah. And I was like, wait a minute. Carpenter's Farm. Oh, Carpenter's Farm should be about like same core idea, but forget all those characters, should be about these characters. And all of a sudden the whole thing opened up to me, and I had planned on writing it in April. Then this virus comes.
Yeah.
And we're all going to be locked down. And I'm saying to like my fiance, Allison, I'm like, well, I'm going to be working on Carpenter's Farm, I guess. And my webmaster asked me, there's a free short story up there.
Yeah.
And he was like, do you have a different free short story to put up there? You've had the same one for like 2 years. And I was like, no, let me see what I got, and I'm looking through it. I'm like, no, I don't really. And then I was like, well, I could write one from scratch. I said, but I don't want to write that right now. I want to write Carpenter's Farm right now. And then I was like, oh, hey, what do you think about if we put a whole book there for free? And I was like, can we do that? He's like, yeah. Do you really want to do that? I'm like, yeah. And I was like, what about, so I contacted Del Rey just to make sure it's not, I didn't want it to like get in the way of Malorie or anything. I wanted it to only help. You know what I mean? I didn't want to just, we have a book coming out. I don't want to write another book, but
that's right.
So talk to her or talk to my editor and agent and Allison and everyone. Everyone's like, yeah, just do it, man. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this. So, but the thing that's crazy about it is that Carpenter's Farm is essentially a rough draft. I mean, I write a chapter, I rewrite it. It's checked for spelling. So there's some
little editing,
not a lot. And then, I mean, typically you write a draft and months later you rewrite, even maybe sometimes even years. So I'm like, okay, all right. And then you post the chapter. I don't know where it's going. Now I do. But at first I'm not for sure like where it's going to go or how many get from A to B or like how many get to this ending. But once you start posting it, you're kind of strapped in, Like, I mean, you not finish the book. I guess that'd be cool if you didn't finish it. It'd be like kind of legendary in a way. You never finish that thing, right? But at the same time, I feel like I'm like this is wild. It does feel a little bit like a high wire act, especially after putting out 8 novels that with like hardcore editing and rewrites and editor, the whole nine. So, but I gotta tell you, man, for a prolific, and for a guy who loves lo-fi bands and lo-fi movies and like do-it-yourself aesthetic, this has been a freaking blast.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, it almost feels like you remember those 4-track recorders, cassette 4-track?
Oh, yeah.
Remember those? It almost feels like the equivalent of writing a book on one of those. Like it's like a full do-it-yourself project. And like I'm dubbing like a tape to a tape that I'm gonna mail to a friend. And that's how it feels. and I freaking love it.
That's great. It's kind of like what's the filmmakers used to the Super 8 film.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. It has that like a cohesive home movie. If somebody like made a whole movie out of home movie footage, it has that spirit to me.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's got to be really fun to write, and I'm sure people will love it. People love that. They like the kind of lo-fi, unedited.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, I was blurbing a book once, and Allison said to me like, "How is it so far?" And I was like, "Man, this book's too thrilling." And she was like, "What does that mean?" And I was like, "No, this one's too thrilling. Like it's not." She's like, "That's good, right?" I'm like, "I don't know how to explain it." So I think that sometimes you can encounter a a book that's like a song could be too poppy,
Yeah.
or too catchy, or this kind of thing, and you're like, that's cool, but like, it's too catchy. So I think that you're right. I think readers, and especially like horror and genre readers, to experience like a sort of live, unscripted.
Well, yeah, it almost makes it more intense.
Oh, it sure does.
Yeah. 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 So you're stuck like the rest of us, basically indoors. What I know what you're reading, so what shows are you watching?
I've been watching Outlander. You ever see that?
I love Outlander.
I love it, man. I'm on episode like 16 or something.
Yeah.
It was funny. I had posted, the crazy dungeon stuff at the end of season 1.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I had posted right before watching that episode. I posted online, I love Outlander, and all these people were like, "This is the best show," and I'm like, "Yeah." And then I went and watched that episode that night. I'm like, "Whoa, holy cow! Wow, this show is crazy." Like I didn't realize it went that far, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it really picks up steam.
Yeah, well, Allison, my girl, she's on book 5.
Oh wow. Yeah, I've never read them. Just watch the show. If you need a good science fiction show, try The Expanse on Amazon. Excellent. The books are even better, but the show is really well done.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's that's one with of course we've been like everybody else. We've watched some of this Tiger King nonsense. And,
I didn't watch it. I mean, I get it. It's probably fun and weird and shit, but
it is. But
I'm not like, I'm vegetarian. Allison's vegan, and I get easily saddened by like big cats in cages and shit.
It is sad.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't know, I'm gonna watch that one.
have you always been, have you always not eaten meat, or is that more recent?
No, I am 44, and I don't even know how long I've been, 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
But okay. It's because of Allison. Really, she's vegan, and she's like probably in the best shape of anyone I've ever met.
Yeah.
She's a marathon. She could run marathons. She's just very like borderline like nutritionist, and so watching her live and listening to her talk about all this, and it kind of led to like, what am I doing? Why do I have to have meat if I don't? If I don't have to be a part of the process and the factory farms, if I don't have to play a part of that, then why do it? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. And with Allison's sister, actually, I was like, Anna, let's try to go like a year vegetarian, that kind of thing. Yeah. She went like 6 months or something, but then I kind of knew somewhere in that year, like, I don't think I'm looking back.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I hear that same story from a lot of. I mean, some people try it and it's just not for them. But some people, once they do it, they're just like, I'm done.
Well, here's the thing: I didn't feel any different in terms of energy level, in terms of weight gain or loss or anything, and nothing felt different except for morally. I feel like way better.
No, it's good.
So I'm like, all right, then screw it. Then let's do it. I have heard people who have gone veggie and then they claim that they needed protein, but I think Allison would argue, and probably justifiably so, that they just didn't have the right plan or they didn't know exactly what to eat,
Yeah, you should be able to get everything you need if you eat correctly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, Josh, thank you so much for taking some time. This is one I've been looking forward to. This has been great. I'm going to send it straight to Brett because I want him to listen to you talk a little bit about the writing process.
Are we going to meet in person when we're there?
Yeah, please. I didn't want to assume, but I mean, if you're coming in, we would absolutely love to meet you in person.
All right.
Yeah. We'll hook that up.
That sounds good.
We'll take you somewhere nice.
That sounds great.
Well, before you go, Josh, run through where people can find you, and and also anything else that you have coming out. Are you guys planning a tour later?
Not planning a tour, but the High Strung are recording a new album right now, and which is kind of exciting because we had done like some vocals and whatever recent enough where now I'm getting mixes during this lockdown. What a fun thing to receive, right? During lockdown, you get a mix it, and you're like, oh my God, this is great. So we are working on an album. Mallorys, as I said, comes out in July. And I'm just, it really is just my name, Josh Malerman, which is only one L. Josh Malerman on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. everywhere.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're
And
pretty
the
easy to
website,
find.
even the website is just joshmalerman.com. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very, very easy to find you.
Yeah.
Well, so I got one more question before you go. I've seen a lot of people doing, a lot of bands or chorus groups doing the Zoom songs where everybody's playing their thing on Zoom together.
Yeah.
Have you and the band got together and done that yet?
So the bass player just wrote us something like yesterday or the day before about that. I would love to, except you all need to have what's called the Ethernet cable. You all have to be like, it can't be like wireless or else the like timing or whatever. Like the Buffy's like, so it all has to be like into the wall, which I'm sure we have all cables or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know if all 5 of us do, but I would love to do that.
Yeah.
Strap on some headphones and just,
yeah, some of that's really well done.
I know.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Well, thank you so much, Josh. And yeah, definitely. I think the book fair is in September.
In October, early October.
October, yeah. So yeah, we'll definitely have to get together when you come into town.
And if everything's, gosh, I hope it's back to normal by then, right?
Me too.
It's got to be, right? So
I hope.
I hope so. Yeah, we'll see.
Hopefully sooner rather than later, but not too soon.
Right.
Let's get past it first.
Sooner than later, but smarter than dumber.
All right, Josh. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your evening. You're in Detroit, so you're what, about an hour behind us, I think, maybe?
No, we're the same. We're the
East
same.
Coast. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So yeah, it is your evening time. About dinner time.
Yeah. It sure is.
Right. Well, thank you, Josh.
I'm gonna go read this.
With you. Yes, go finish that up. It's so good. And they actually made that into a TV show.
Was it was on MTV or something?
Yeah, it's on one of the streamings. At Netflix, I think, has it.
All right, I'll check it out. Okay.
Yeah, it's a couple seasons. All right, Josh. Well, have a good evening. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you.
So that was Josh. What an amazing guy. I've been looking forward to that interview for so long, and he's so interesting to talk to, and he's got such a good story. I hopefully you caught it, but he's touring with his band. He had written 14 novels before the first one was published, so he was basically just writing for himself or maybe a small group. And then Bird Box, which was actually his 4th or 5th book that he'd written, was published, and then he gets this whole new level of fame on top of what he had already gotten with High Strung. It's kind of amazing, but a very down to earth guy. I love talking through some of the books that he was reading, and you could tell that he was excited about reading them, which I think is really great. And we're definitely looking forward to meeting him in person when he comes to West Virginia this fall. Hopefully everything's back to normal by then. Thank you so much for listening, and allowing us to bring you what I hope is interesting content, and hopefully it's something that you'll enjoy. If you have a moment, please check us out on Facebook on MeisterCon. You can also find our page on MeisterCon Pod. Look for us on YouTube under MeisterCon Pod. You can listen to us on any podcasting app. Hopefully you're aware of that by now. And please, if you're so inclined, we do have a Patreon page. We try to do this as cheaply as we can, but we could use a little help. So if you feel inclined to donate a couple of dollars, please do that. So you can find us on Patreon as well under MeisterCon. So thank you, everybody. Enjoyed it. Look forward to having Brett back with me next time. We'll talk to you again real soon. Thank you. Goodbye.